The diesel engine roared through the Indiana dusk, a low rumble that filled the cab of Jake Harper's 18-wheeler. The radio crackled with an old Merle Haggard tune, the kind that made the road feel a little less lonely. Jake's hands gripped the wheel, his eyes fixed on the highway stretching into the fading light. Another 12-hour haul, another night away from home. His phone buzzed on the dashboard, and he sighed, knowing who it was before he even looked. "Hey, Emma," he said, hitting the speaker button. His voice was rough, worn from years of shouting over engines and too little sleep. "Hey," her reply came sharp and clipped like she was already halfway done with the conversation. "Did you remember Liam's game was today?" Jake's stomach sank. He rubbed his eyes, the weight of the day pressing harder. "Damn it. I forgot Em. I'm sorry. I'm on 70 headed to St. Louis. Got a tight schedule." There was a pause, the kind that carried 1,000 unsaid words. "Of course you are," she said finally. "It's fine, Jake. I handled it. Like always." He could hear the kids in the background, Ava's music blasting through a closed door, Liam's sneakers squeaking on the hardwood. "Look, I'll make it up to him." "Okay, I'll be home soon. Maybe next weekend." "Sure," Emma set her tone flat. "I gotta go. Dinner's burning." The line went dead before he could respond. Jake stared at the road, the yellow lines blurring into one long streak. He'd missed Liam's Little League game again, and Ava's school play last month, and God knows what else. He loved his family more than anything. That's why he was out here grinding out these miles, hauling freight to keep the bills paid and the fridge full. But lately, every call with Emma felt like a transaction, and the kids sounded like strangers. Back in their Ohio suburb, Emma Harper stood in the kitchen, the smell of overcooked lasagna hanging in the air. The house was picture perfect, the kind of place you'd see on Instagram, with its white picket fence and neatly trimmed lawn. But it felt hollow, like a stage set for a play nobody was watching. She glanced at the sink piled high with dishes and fought the urge to scream. Another day of juggling laundry car pools and Ava's teenage attitude, all while Jake was out there playing cowboy on the road. "Mom, can I go to Sophie's tonight?" Ava burst into the kitchen, her earbuds dangling. She was 15, all sharp edges and dyed black hair, her eyes hidden behind a curtain of bangs. "Not tonight, honey," Emma said, stirring the lasagna to salvage what she could. "We need to eat together for once." Ava rolled her eyes. "Whatever. This house is so boring." She stomped back upstairs, the slam of her door echoing through the house. Emma sighed, turning to Liam, who was slumped at the table, his 12-year-old frame hunched over a plate of untouched carrots. "You okay, bud?" she asked, brushing his sandy hair back. He shrugged, not meeting her eyes. "When's Dad coming home? I miss him." Emma's throat tightened. "I don't know, honey," she said softly. "Soon, I hope." She hated how her voice wavered, how she couldn't give him a straight answer. Liam nodded, his face blank, and slipped out of the kitchen, leaving her alone with the dishes and her thoughts. 300 miles away, Jake pulled into the Starlight Diner, a neon-lit oasis in the middle of nowhere. The gravel crunched under his boots as he stepped out, the cold night air biting his skin. Inside, the diner smelled of coffee and fried onions, the kind of place that hadn't changed since the 80s. Clara, the waitress, spotted him right away, her smile bright against her dark curls. "Well, look who's back," she said, sliding a mug of black coffee across the counter. "The usual, right? You know it," Jake rasped, managing a half smile. "Bacon sandwich, extra crispy." "Coming right up," she said, her hand brushing his as she took his crumpled tin. The touch lingered a second too long, and Jake felt a spark, something warm and dangerous. He pulled back, focusing on the coffee, its heat seeping through the mug. Clara was just being kind, he told himself. Nothing more. But out here, where the days blended into one long stretch of asphalt, her smile felt like a lifeline. "So how's the road treating you?" Clara asked, leaning on the counter. Her voice was easy, like they were old friends. "Long," Jake said, staring into his coffee. "Too long." He didn't say more, but her nod told him she understood. She always did. Back home, Emma was losing it. The dishwasher had flooded the kitchen water, pooling around her feet as she scrambled for towels. It was the last straw, the cherry on top of a day that already felt like a punch to the gut. She grabbed her phone and dialed Jake, her hands shaking. "What's up, Em?" He answered, his voice muffled by the hum of the diner. "The dishwasher's dead," she snapped. "Liam's acting out at school. Ava won't talk to me, and I'm drowning here, Jake. I can't do this alone anymore." Jake's chest tightened. He was parked at a rest stop now, the rain drumming on his windshield. "I'm sorry, Em," he said, his voice breaking. "I'm trying. I'm out here for us. You know that." "I know," Emma said softer now, "but it doesn't make it easier. We need you here, Jake. Not your money. You." He swallowed hard. "I'll be home soon. I promise. I'll figure something out." The call ended, and Emma sank to the floor, the wet towels soaking her jeans. She wasn't just angry at Jake. She was angry at herself for letting this life swallow her whole. She used to paint, used to lose herself in colors and shapes. When did she stop? When did she become just the mom, the wife, the one who held it all together while Jake drove away? The next morning, Emma signed up for a painting class at the community center. Her friend Rachel had been bugging her for weeks, and she finally caved. The class was small, just a handful of women in a sunlit room, their canvases filled with bold strokes and messy experiments. Emma's first painting was a mess, all blues and greens clashing like a stormy sea, but it felt alive. For the first time in years, she felt like herself again. "You've got a real spark," Emma Rachel said, peering at her canvas. "You should do this more." Emma laughed, a sound she barely recognized. "Maybe I will," she said, and meant it. Meanwhile, Jake was hauling a load through Illinois, his mind replaying the call with Emma. He thought of the early days when they were young and broke, laughing over cheap pizza in their first apartment. He'd taught Ava to ride a bike in the driveway, her giggles echoing as she wobbled. He'd cheered at Liam's first Little League game, his tiny bat swinging wildly. When did it all slip away? He called home hoping to hear their voices. But Ava hung up after a curt fine, and Liam mumbled a quick hi before passing the phone back. At the Starlight Diner that night, Clara slid into the booth across from him during her break. "Rough day," she asked, her eyes kind. "You could say that," Jake said. "My kid's birthday was last week, I think. Time's all messed up out here." Clara nodded, stirring her coffee. "My dad was a trucker. Gone all the time. I used to hate him for it, but now I get it. It's not about wanting to leave. It's about what you're trying to build." Jake looked at her, really looked, and saw the weight behind her smile. He wanted to say something, anything, but the words stuck. She was right, but it didn't ease the guilt gnawing at him. Driving on, he passed a family on a roadside picnic, their laughter carrying through the open window. It hit him like a freight train. Those moments, pizza nights, bike rides, cheering from the bleachers, were worth more than any paycheck. He pulled over his hands, shaking, and dialed Emma. "Em, it's me," he said when she answered. Her voice was tired, wary. "Everything's wrong. I'm sorry. I need to come home. For good." There was a long silence, then a soft gasp. "Okay, Jake," she said finally. "Let's talk when you're here." The drive home was a blur, Jake's heart pounding with hope and fear. What if Emma didn't want him back? What if the kids had given up on him? The house looked the same when he pulled into the driveway, but it felt different, like he was a stranger walking into someone else's life. He opened the door, the smell of candles and fresh-baked cookies hitting him like a wave. Emma stood in the kitchen, her apron dusted with flour. She froze, her eyes wide. "Jake, you're here?" "Yeah," he said, his voice rough. "I didn't know if you'd want me back." She crossed her arms, her expression softening, but guarded. "We need to talk. A lot. But yes, Jake, we need you here." Ava and Liam peeked out from the living room, curious but hesitant. "Hey, Dad." Liam said, his voice small. Ava just nodded, her earbuds dangling. That night, Jake and Emma sat at the kitchen table after the kids went to bed. "I've been gone too long," Jake said, staring at his hands. "I thought the money was enough. I was wrong." Emma reached for his hand, her touch tentative. "I lost myself too," she said. "I was so busy being the mom, the wife, I forgot who I was. But I'm finding her again. And I want us to find us again too. It wasn't a fix, not yet, but it was a start." The next morning, Jake went to Liam's baseball practice. Coach Mike clapped him on the back, surprised. "Good to see you, Harper. Your boy's got a mean swing, but he needs his dad in the stands." Jake knotted his throat tight as he watched Liam step up to the plate. "Go get him, bud," he called, and Liam's face lit up just for a second. Later, he found Ava in the garage, tinkering with an old skateboard. "Need a hand?" he asked, crouching beside her. She shrugged, but didn't push him away. "It's busted," she said. "Been trying to fix it forever." "Let's figure it out together," Jake said, grabbing a wrench. They worked in silence at first, but then Ava started talking about school, her music, a band she loved. It was small, but it was something. Emma watched from the porch, her latest painting propped against a chair. It was a landscape all warm golds and deep blues, like the Ohio sky at dusk. She felt a pang, not just for Jake's return, but for the woman she'd become in his absence. She'd joined a painting class, started volunteering at the community center, even laughed with Rachel over coffee. Those things were hers now, and she wasn't sure how Jake fit into this new version of her life. Weeks passed, and Jake took a local delivery job, trading long hauls for shorter routes. The pay cut stung, but being home for dinner made it worth it. The kids were still wary, Ava's sarcasm hadn't softened much, and Liam kept his distance, like he was waiting for Jake to leave again. But there were moments that felt like progress. One night, they ordered pizza and watched a cheesy action movie, Ava groaning at the bad lines, while Liam laughed so hard he spilled his soda. Jake caught Emma's eye across the room, and for the first time in years, they shared a real smile. One evening, Emma stared out the kitchen window, the sunset, painting the sky in pinks and oranges. She'd bought a pot of marigolds on a whim, their bright petals a reminder of the life she was building. But Jake's return had shifted things. He was trying cooking breakfast, helping with homework, but he seemed lost, like he didn't know his place in this house anymore. She felt it too, a new kind of distance, not from absence, but from change. Jake sat at the table, his coffee gone cold. "I didn't know, Em," he said finally. "I thought this was what you wanted. The house, the kids, me, working to make it happen." "I did," Emma said, her voice steady. "But I lost myself along the way. I wasn't just waiting for you. I was fading." Jake looked at her, his eyes heavy with regret. "I took you for granted," he said. "Thought money was enough. But I see you now, and you're different. I barely know you anymore." Emma met his gaze unflinching. "Maybe you never did," she said, "but I know me now, and I can't go back." The silence stretched between them, heavy with truth. Emma blinked back tears, not from sadness, but from the weight of saying it out loud. Jake reached for her hand, and this time she didn't pull away. Months later, things weren't perfect, but they were better. Jake was home most nights, his boots by the door, instead of in a truck stop parking lot. Emma's paintings lined the living room, each one brighter than the last. Ava started playing her music for Jake, her guitar strumming late into the night. Liam asked him to coach his swing, and Jake spent hours in the backyard, tossing pitches under the Ohio stars. One afternoon, the family gathered in the garage, the air thick with the smell of grease and sawdust. Ava's skateboard was finally fixed, its wheels spinning smoothly. Liam grinned, holding up a wrench like a trophy. "Told you we could do it," he said, glancing at Jake. "Yeah, you did," Jake said, ruffling his hair. Ava hopped on the board, wobbling but laughing as she rolled across the driveway. Emma leaned against Jake, her shoulder brushing his. It's not perfect, she said, her voice soft. Nope. Jake agreed, a smile tugging at his lips. But it's ours. They stood there watching the kids chase each other, under the fading light, the sound of their laughter filling the air. It wasn't the life they'd planned, but it was the one they were building piece by piece, mile by mile.